So SB 918, the bill that would essentially ban concealed carry in the entire state of California, is somehow even worse than I initially thought. Looking through it, it seems as if there's not an actual spot that I can legally conceal carry a firearm anywhere in Santa Rosa, California, where I am located. And it seems like some people could fall into a situation where they're forced to get a letter of reference from a former domestic abuser to be their reference to get a concealed carry permit. It sounds insane, but we're going to be talking about it, and it is actually the case. This is not clickbait, it's this real. Let's go take a little drive and talk about it. Okay, so I am out here in front of my favorite gun store in Petaluma. This is Sportsman's Arms, and this place actually is the perfect illustration for how this gun law would affect a whole lot of people. So if we look here, there is Sportsman's Arms. Now to the right of it is a Mountain Mike's Pizza. They sell beer, which means they sell alcohol for consumption on the premises. You cannot be here or in the parking lot, which includes where I am currently standing, this entire parking lot. Now over there we have a chiropractic center. Because that place offers medical care of any kind, you cannot be in that business, the sidewalk, or the parking lot. So this sidewalk, you cannot actually be here. You cannot walk on this sidewalk. You cannot be in there. You cannot actually carry your firearm that you have a permit for, that you legally went through all the paperwork, all the process. You cannot access this gun store because there is no legal way for you to be on this sidewalk or that parking lot if you are currently concealed carrying that firearm, which you have a license to. So I just paid $137 to fill up my truck, and I'm actually not even supposed to be here because this gas station happens to sell lottery tickets. Now, if the business sells lottery tickets other than the California lottery, totally fine. But if they sell lottery tickets other than the California lottery, you can't be in that business or in the parking lot of that business. I'm currently outside the mall in Santa Rosa, and this is an excellent example of a place that I could not go. So because inside this business, there is a fitness center, a gym, I can't actually be on any of the property, any of the sidewalks, or any of the parking lots. So one of the biggest parking lots, public parking spots in downtown Santa Rosa is the one connected to the mall. So I can't actually be in there. Some of these restaurants, I believe, serve alcohol, but the easiest way to just automatically determine that I can't be in there is because they have a fitness center. Automatically disqualified. So right now I'm in downtown Santa Rosa at the old Courthouse Square, and I think this is a perfect example illustrating the ridiculousness that is this law. There is a list of about 25 places that are very common that is almost impossible to avoid, and I'm going to try to illustrate this with a little bit of a map overlay showing you. I might point the camera around at a few spots, showing you how it would be basically impossible for me to carry a firearm with my license to conceal carry a firearm anywhere in the biggest city around my home. So after sitting down and talking about some of these locations and looking around and going a little walk in my city, I realized that there's not actually a single location in downtown Santa Rosa, where I'm from, that I can actually conceal carry a firearm. And I am interested in, would you guys want me to do a little exercise going on a live stream and just marking out areas that you're from and looking at the cities, looking at the maps, seeing what kind of locations you would and wouldn't be able to carry in, because it's a lot worse than we initially thought. Now, a lot of this boils down to the 25 additional locations that were added to this list of where you can't carry a firearm. A lot of them are very loose. In addition to just the actual building, it's the entire property, the parking area, the streets in some instances, and the adjacent sidewalks. There's some ambiguity currently, in my opinion, about what adjacent means in the context of this bill, because it's not explicitly defined. Does adjacent mean just the sidewalks right outside the building, or does it mean the sidewalks across the street? Does it mean the entire sidewalk along that block, straight out in front and to the sides? What does it mean? We're not entirely sure because it's not spelled out currently. So I'm talking about this bill prior to it passing under the assumption that it is going to pass, because it seems as if nearly every Democratic Assembly member has signed on as a co-sponsor of this. Gavin Newsom said he wanted this bill to get signed. It was gutted and amended immediately after the New York State Rifle and Pistol Association versus Bruin court case, which said that you cannot have may issue subjective permit schemes. They didn't like that, so they immediately went into action and said, hey, Bruin said we can't make an entire city a sensitive area. But what if we just kind of define all of the buildings that you might find in a city and make it illegal to carry a gun near one of those? What if we did that? So that's what they're doing. It seems as if the CRPA and Michelle and Associates is very confident that we are going to win this in the court case when those court cases come. But in the meantime, because of the urgency clause that was a part of SB 918, it goes into effect immediately. So you have to assume that you probably can't carry legally. Now, concealed means concealed. I'm not a lawyer. This is not legal advice, but you get to make your own choices. Do you get caught with it? Do you get caught without it? It's up to you to decide. So let's list off the 25 locations. These will be linked down in the description. I want to say thank you to the Reddit user Asleep Onion for putting this together. It makes it just a whole lot easier than having to scroll through the bill text, which I will have a link to down below. So the new places where CCW is prohibited: any state or local buildings, state capitol grounds, any legislative office, governor's mansion grounds, and any property owned by the governor, including, his winery, which was open during many parts of the last few years when many others were closed. Whatever, not about it, not talking about that today. The entire property of any location under the control of any officer of the state government. The entire property, including the parking lots of all airports, harbors, and ports facilities. Now, previously, that was just these sterile areas. You could just go and pick someone up from the airport. Now, if you have a concealed carry weapons permit carrying your gun, you cannot just go and pick up your buddy. You cannot bring your gun with you. You have to leave that at home. On any street or sidewalk adjacent to any school grounds. Street or sidewalk adjacent to any school grounds. Now, just the other day I was in Healdsburg. I happened to had to park a little bit far away from the square so that I could go to one of the wineries. Now, I wasn't carrying a firearm at the time because I was going to be drinking, but I had to park my car and go on a walk, and I happened to stumble upon a school. I just realized, oh, hey, there's a school grounds right there. Good thing I'm not carrying a gun. The entire property, including the parking lot of any preschool or childcare facility. The entire property, including the parking lot of any court. The entire property, including the parking lot of any detention center. The entire property, including the parking lot of any facility where any medical care is provided. Now, many of those that I just listed are very common to find in any building. You might be next to a 20-story building and it's full of office spaces, full of rented office spaces. You don't know what's inside there. If you don't know for certain what is in those buildings, you should probably assume that the entire area, including the parking lot, is an area that you cannot carry a firearm. And now, number 8, medical care is provided. A lot of people think that might mean just hospitals. No. If the strip mall that you're at has a dentist, if the strip mall that you're at has a chiropractor, has a therapist. Now, in a lot of these big buildings, there might be certain floors where there might be a few therapists' offices, where there might be a few doctors' offices that you don't even know about because it's not labeled real big on the front. It's just rental office space. And now you, unknowing to you, are concealed carrying a firearm unlawfully because you're in the parking lot to the building that happens to have one place where medical care is provided in that building. Now, basically what this means is that you should assume you can't carry there unless you know every single door, what's behind every door in every building. You should assume that you probably cannot carry there. Any public transportation that gets any funding from the government, so pretty much any bus stop, train station, all that, cannot carry there anymore. The entire property, including the parking lot of any business or vendor that sells alcohol for consumption on site, regardless of whether it's the primary business. Previously, it was just bars or wineries, wine tasting rooms that you could not carry a firearm. Now, any restaurant that serves alcohol at all, you would not be able to carry there or the parking lot. At any permitted public gathering and on any street or sidewalk within 1,000 feet of any permitted public gathering. Like I said in the intro, I was at the Santa Rosa Plaza, a place where there is often permitted events. Now, you might not know that that event is going on later in the day, but when they get that permit might be good from like 8 to 11 a.m. all the way till 9 p.m. The event might only appear to be going on from 4 to 9 p.m. You might say, okay, well, it's easy to avoid those. But the permitted event is technically occurring from the time that the permit is active till the time that it's over. You cannot be within 1,000 feet of that. Maybe there's an organized protest, 995 feet away from you, and you happen to be walking on the street completely unaware, because 1,000 feet is pretty far. 1,000 feet, you can have plenty of businesses between you and that event that you're totally unaware of. And because of that, you would actually be breaking the law. It's like you don't even have a concealed carry permit. So you're looking at least 2 misdemeanors, maybe a felony. Not ideal. That would be what people refer to as suboptimal. Any park, athletic area, or athletic center, or playground, or youth center, and any street or sidewalk adjacent to any of those things. So, a great example for this for me is the mall. There is a mall in Santa Rosa that has a fitness center inside it. A lot of people don't know that there's a fitness center there, but there is, and because of that, you cannot park in the parking lot there, one of the biggest parking lots in Santa Rosa that a lot of people park at. You cannot be on any of the sidewalks of that entire area because there's a fitness center. Now, let's say there's an athletic area like a baseball field, soccer field. You cannot be over there. You cannot be on the sidewalks next to them. The craziest thing about this is the sidewalks. Because many of these locations have sidewalks that are banned, you can't actually walk to most places, meaning that where can you actually carry? Well, maybe you can get in your vehicle, drive somewhere. Hopefully you don't happen to drive through one of the streets that are now banned to drive on. And then from there, you can get out of your car and probably get arrested immediately. Do not pass go, do not collect $200. All property under the control of the California Department of Fish and Wildlife or the California DPR except areas designated for hunting or shooting. So by definition, Department of Fish and Wildlife land is not a sensitive area. How could you possibly declare parks and fish and wildlife land as a sensitive area? Except for the specific areas where you can shoot and hunt. Does that make sense? Is that a sensitive location, or did they just try to define a big swath of land? It seems as if they are trying to define every possible location in the state of California to ban concealed carry in the state of California. All property, including the parking lot of any public or private college. Now, you probably run into these a lot more often than you think. For example, in Santa Rosa, there is just a little office building, looks like any other office building, unmarked. On the inside, there is the University of San Francisco classrooms, the adjacent campus in Santa Rosa that you didn't even know existed probably, but you cannot park in that parking lot. That parking lot happens to be one of the biggest parking lots for most of the places that you would go and grab any sort of food from one of these restaurants locally, go to one of these shops. Interestingly enough, that parking lot is actually where a strange man tried to get into my wife's vehicle. She locked the door and just drove the fuck off. She was very lucky that she did not get hurt there, but not everyone is so lucky. But she would not legally be able to carry a firearm there because it is the parking lot of a college or university. All property including the parking lot of any gambling or gambling facility or anywhere lottery tickets other than the CA state lottery can be bought. Now, it's very interesting that if you want to buy California lottery tickets, you're all good, bro. Don't worry. But if they sell any other lottery tickets, you better not be in that parking lot. All property, including the parking lot of any stadium or arena. All property, including the parking lot of any library. All property, including the parking lot of any amusement park. All property, including the parking lot of any zoo or museum. These are a lot more common. Museums are very common, and you would not realize. I did not realize how many dang museums there are in downtown Santa Rosa until looking at these maps. All property, including the parking lot of any place of worship unless a posted sign allows it. Now, this is the vampire clause, which we're going to get to in a second, which we are collectively referring to as the vampire clause. Any parking lot adjacent to any church, whether or not it's owned or used by the church. So, if there is a church and then there's a parking lot nearby for another business, you cannot park in that business. Even if that business allows you into their store, you can't be there because there's a church nearby. That makes a whole lot of sense. All property, including the parking lot of any financial institution or bank. All property, including the parking area of any law enforcement agency. Any polling place or street or sidewalk adjacent to a polling place. Street. So, when it's election season, there's polling places everywhere. Maybe you're driving 5 miles per hour over the speed limit. You get pulled over. You don't realize that you are on the street adjacent to a polling location that you had no idea existed. Cop sees that. Cop sees that you have a CCW. Boom. Now you're going to jail, buddy. Now, the final one, the vampire clause. So, any private business that is open to the public, you cannot carry a firearm unless they have a sign provided from the government with the official language and description saying that you can carry a firearm. They are forcing you to make a public statement allowing someone to exercise their right. They are forcing you to make a political statement in order for you to allow people to exercise their rights. We could make a lot of comparisons to a certain point in time in a certain European country where certain people had to put signs on their business saying that they accepted business from certain types of people, but it would just be way too easy. It would just be way too easy to make those comparisons. So either way, it is wrong to require a business to make a statement allowing people to exercise their rights. It is one thing for a business to say no guns allowed, because they do technically have that right to say who is and who isn't allowed in their property. It is a complete other thing to require someone to make a statement to allow the default. The default should be people are allowed here. They're allowed to exercise their rights as free Americans if they want to. If we don't want them in here, we can ask them to leave. I still don't agree with them doing that, but maybe you guys have different opinions. Let me know. So the vampire clause, they have to, as of right now, at the time of this bill passing, it would be impossible for you to carry anywhere because no business currently has these signs. And it's looking like Gavin Newsom is going to sign this bill in just a couple days. I would be surprised if we make it out of the end of this week without this bill being signed into law. Let me know what you guys think down below. You guys know the drill. Have fun, be safe, stay dangerous. Peace. Okay, so after recording this and after editing it, I forgot to mention the most important parts. There were a few things that were changed as far as the requirements to get it. So in addition to increasing the potential fees for renewals, increasing the amount of hours required to get it, so it went from a minimum of 8 hours to a minimum of 16 hours to do the training. Now, all of this is coming out of your pocket. If the state actually cared about getting people training and making sure people were safe and responsible, they would offer this sort of training for free, but they don't. They want you to spend your money. They also increased the maximum cost of the psych evaluation, so some counties do require a psych evaluation. They're increasing that from a 150 max to a 200 max, and then as inflation and cost of living increases, that number can increase with that as well. So let's talk about the references and how a potential person could be forced to get a letter of reference from their former domestic abuser. So the 3 character references, at least one of whom must be a person described in subdivision B of section 273.5 if applicable, and at least one of whom must be the applicant's cohabitant if applicable. You need to get a letter of reference from someone that you live with or formerly lived with, and you must get a reference from someone described in this certain penal code section, which has a weird way of wording because it's from domestic violence stuff, but we will list the 4 options that you have there. The offender's spouse or former spouse, the offender's cohabitant or former cohabitant, the offender's fiance or fiancée, or someone with whom the offender has or previously had an engagement or dating relationship as defined in paragraph 10, subdivision F of whatever, the mother or father of the offender's child. So let's say you have never lived with anyone. You have both of your parents deceased. So that knocks out that. Let's say your spouse or former spouse or the person that you were in a relationship, the only person you've ever been in a romantic relationship with was a person who beat you or abused you. You would have to get a letter of reference from them, and you would be forced to have the department that you are applying with interview them. Does that seem right to you? Now, maybe the sheriff says, no, don't worry about it, don't require that. But that's them being in a position where they are choosing to break the law and the requirements. It could be a weird situation. It could be a situation that happens to someone. You know, maybe a single mother who is dealing with a violent father and their parents aren't around anymore. Maybe they never lived with anyone else other than their child, which, can a child give a letter of reference? I don't know. Maybe they don't have a kid. Maybe it's just their former husband that beat them. It's just a crazy situation that they're going to be requiring this and not leaving any sort of room for interpretation. So yeah, they're going to make it more expensive. They're going to make it more costly. They're going to require you to do more and take more time off work, making it more expensive. And they're going to require you to get letters of reference potentially from people that are not interested in you having the means to protect yourself. Let me know what you think.